I'm Scarecrow85 and this is my review for Haunted House on the Switch. So this is a new version of the classic game Haunted House, which was originally released in 1982, I think, by Atari. There's quite a lot of history to this game, but I'm going to be talking about the game primarily on its own merits as what it is here. This was released by Orbit Studio. This came out this year, 2023, in October, I believe. Story. There's barely a story. That's the story. There is barely a story. Who cares? Effectively, it's about a group of kids doing a sort of Goonies, early 80s, Stranger Things style kids club thing where they go and check out this old haunted mansion. I think actually it's supposed to be the grandfather or great-grandfather of one of the kids it belongs to, and he's gone missing. So they go and have a look. The place seems to be haunted. They go in, they all get captured bar one, and you start the game with one player character. You can unlock the others as you go along. They have their own stats and so on, more on that later. And yeah, you go in and start doing the haunted house thing. There's really not a lot of story. It ties itself to the original game in several ways, and one of them is that your overall objective throughout the game is to gather 3 pieces of a mystic urn. And you do this by clearing 3 distinct areas of the house. The gameplay loop is pretty much what you would expect for a roguelite. You will go into the house, starting a run. You'll have 3 doors to pick from, but only one will be unlocked at the start. And you'll enter, each time you go through a door, you will enter a new room. Each room will present you with a challenge. In the top right of the screen, you will see what your current challenge is. It'll also introduce each challenge anyway, so it's not, you're not left guessing. It's pretty clear what you have to do. So you go into each room, you complete the challenge, that'll unlock the doors, and you can move on to the next room. There is choice. You don't have to, quite often there'll be more than one exit from a room. You can try all the doors, you can backtrack if you want, or you can just make a beeline through if you'd rather. The longer you take, and the more rooms you explore, the more you're likely to find, the more items you're likely to accrue, and the better off you'll be. But also, of course, the more chance there is of you slipping up and getting killed before you get any further. Halfway through each run, you will encounter the boss in a sort of mini stealth challenge, and then you'll carry on through some more rooms, and then you'll face the boss in a proper actual one-on-one boss battle at the end. But anyway, what I was saying about the rooms, I said that there's a challenge in each one. So these challenges vary, obviously. They're different each time. There's a number of different ones. I think they're all good. Like, they're all interesting. I don't hate any of the challenges. So you go into a room, the doors will lock, and you'll have to do things like... there's one where you have to kill all the enemies in the area. There's one where you just have to survive for a certain amount of time without getting killed. There's one where you have to find an idol by searching all the chests in the area. It's all pretty straightforward, but the challenge lies in that, as I said before, this is a stealth game, so you are primarily tasked with avoiding combat. You do get items that you can collect from chests, some of which will be traps or offensive items that you can use to attack. There is a ghost disguise which lets you pass unnoticed, which is one of my favourite items in the game. It's really rare, so it's a shame, but I love it. I think it's really cool. I want to play the whole game as your ghosty. But yeah, with that not being an option, it'd be too easy, I suppose. Yeah, you can get these traps, which are items that you can deploy. You can either throw them directly at the nearest enemy, or you can place them somewhere in the environment for enemies to trip over. They will usually incapacitate your enemy in some way. They don't normally kill them, they'll just slow them down, but then you can run in for the kill. You can either hold down the Y button to concentrate the light in your lantern, thus dealing damage, or if you get behind an enemy and press Y when the prompt comes up, you'll do an insta-kill. But the game does encourage you not to rely too much on combat, really. You'll be snuffing out your lantern and moving around in the dark, staying out of their cones of vision. I do wish that this game had proper hiding places, lockers you could get into, that kind of thing. There's nothing of the sort. You really do just have to snuff your lantern and sort of tuck yourself into a corner. The areas are quite cluttered with items, so there's always something to hide behind. You can kite enemies around things. If enemies do become alerted to you, you're in trouble. Like, things go south quickly. It's a cascade of cock-ups, and it just gets worse and worse. You're probably going to die. Like, it's very hard to lose aggro, especially if you aggro more than one thing. You're in a cramped environment, there's lots of enemies in each room, so you're just going to end up tripping over more and more enemies. it doesn't usually go well. It's usually the end of the run. The bosses especially I found to be quite interesting. The direct boss battles that you take on, as in the second time you meet a boss in a run, and also the bosses that guard the unlockable characters, those are quite fun. You face them in an arena. There's usually a little sort of puzzle to how you fight them. It's quite good. I like it as a pattern. I didn't have any problem with the bosses. What I don't like are halfway through a normal run, you'll encounter the boss in a kind of stealth challenge, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Let's say, for example, the boss is in room number 1, and you're in room number 1, you're searching the chests, sort of sneaking around the boss, and then you leave room number 1, go down the corridor and go into room number 2. The boss will follow you. Now, that's irrespective of whether or not the boss knows you're here. You know, you can be completely silent, your lantern snuffed, you've never alerted the boss in any way, shape or form, but the boss will always follow you. It'll always be right behind you, and it will always be in the room that you're in. And I think that's not fair. I not only think that's not fair, but I think it detracts from the fun, because as I say, if it was just doing a broad patrol of the areas and going in and out and things like that, like the Alien in Alien Isolation or the Raptors in Jurassic World Aftermath, I would think that that was probably quite a fun challenge, because the boss is still a substantial threat, but it doesn't feel like it's cheating. So yeah, I don't like the midway challenges. Another negative that I'm going to bring up at this point, since we're doing that, is I have encountered a couple of unpleasant bugs, a couple of glitches in the game. Nothing sort of generally during gameplay, but I've had it a couple of times with the bosses. There has been a patch since the game released, since I've been playing it, that has smoothed it out a little bit, but I'm still getting some problems, in particular with boss number 2. So the first glitch I had was with Kuka, I think her name is, the first boss. She's a witch, where during the boss battle with her, you have to put items into a cauldron, and when you do, it takes control away from you. Your character freezes in place, and the camera pans across to show the animation happen. But Kuka was still moving and attacking me during that time, and she kept killing me during cutscenes where I couldn't move. So that wasn't cool, didn't like that. That didn't happen on the last time I did it, and I did manage to beat her, so I don't know if maybe they managed to fix that, or whether they were even aware of that as an issue, I don't know. But I did get past that, so maybe they fixed it. However, I'm now having a similar problem with the second boss, where every time you arrive at the stealth challenge part, as soon as you arrive there, the camera will pan to show you the boss, and a little character, a little ghost, comes out to sort of introduce you to the boss and tell you who they are. And the boss keeps aggroing on me, even though he can't see. Like, he's not pointing in my direction or anything, but he'll suddenly know I'm there and start launching attacks at me. And he's killed me in that cutscene a couple of times, which again, it is kind of game breaking, because it certainly like torpedoed my run unfairly. I wasn't very happy about that. So, you know, there are some pretty rough edges to this game that do need attention. What I would say is that for the most part this game does play brilliantly well, and I know that the developers do seem to be on it. As I say, there have been patches released, so it is still being supported. I wouldn't write this one off, and they're only minor. These glitches have happened to me, but they don't happen every time, so it's okay. It's not terrible. When you do defeat a boss, you gain access to the next area of the game. There are 3 main areas, and there's also a series of dungeons that you can go to. You get a key for another dungeon area after every boss as well, and the dungeons unlock new characters. As I said at the beginning, a group of kids, I think there's 5 of them, go in. So you get to unlock a new kid as well, and they have their own stats. I particularly like the kid with the headset, I think she's pretty cool. Her stealth stat is extremely high, which is, I think, quite important in a stealth game. Like, why wouldn't you go for the stealth character in a stealth game? So, yeah, she's my fave. I just unlocked her. There are other unlockables as well. I say unlockables, there are collectibles, stuff for the 100% people, and just other things to keep you busy in the game. So there are several different currencies. There's coins that you can collect as you're going along in each level. They get wiped when you die, so you only have them during your run. There's another currency which are kind of opal things. I don't know what they are. They're sort of colourful gems. Those you get to keep between runs, so you can save them up. You don't get them very often, and you only get them in 1s and 2s, so it's worth saving. You're going to need them because they are for character upgrades. Such things as increasing your health, stamina, how many inventory slots you have, stuff like that. Really important, very worth getting. Also, brilliantly, those stats are shared between characters, so if you switch characters you don't have to start upgrading the new character. They're already upgraded with whatever you upgraded the previous character with. It affects their base stats the same way, which is brilliant. It's great, I like that. It doesn't make me feel like I'm back at square one. The opals can also be spent, if you really want to, at the... there's like a butler standing in the foyer, and you can go to him and pay him opals and it'll upgrade the foyer. The foyer is all dilapidated and derelict, and you can basically make it look nice. I don't have any idea if that has any effect whatsoever on gameplay. So despite my niggles and a couple of rather disturbing bugs that are in the game, I still quite enjoy this one. I like it rather a lot. I mean, it suits my vibe. I like spooky games. This one's got a sort of Scooby-Doo, spooky but cartoony, you know, kid-friendly, scary, that kind of thing. It's got a really nice art style. It's all sort of hand-drawn, very atmospheric. There's really good use of colour and light in this game. I think it's quite a striking game to look at. It can be a bit of an eye-boggler. I found when I was looking at images and videos of it before I'd played it, I did find it a little bit confusing, visually confusing, like there's a lot going on. But once you're playing it, it does read quite well, and I think it's actually quite a looker. So it's quite a nice game to look at, and it's got a good feel, like moving the character around, that kind of thing. I think it's all very responsive. It plays well. And so, yeah, it's a sort of... Is it a recommend from me? It is a recommend, but it's, you know, a recommend with a big old asterisk. Like, do consider what I've said. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But, yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And I love that this is a new entry in an old-ass series. It does feel like Haunted House. Even though it's quite different, I like that they've taken elements of the original and moved them into this modern game, which is the perfect segue for me to give you a little history lesson, so hang in there if you're interested. If you're not, thanks for watching. Scoot on out of it. I'm going to tell you about the original Haunted House. It'll only be brief, don't worry. So, Haunted House, right? It was a game made in 1982, I'm going to say? And it was... I mean, by today's standards, you'd probably think of this as an ugly game. It's certainly a very basic looking one. You're a pair of eyeballs in the dark, and you're just moving around from room to room. You've got a torch that you can light. You can only find items when you've got your torch lit, and you're just looking for items. You've got to find the 3 pieces of an urn and then make it back to the exit without getting got by the ghoulies inside the house. There are... ghosts are the main problem that will have you. And there are bats and spiders which can move items around and generally just be a pain in the bum. It's somewhat atmospheric. I think they did fantastically well to simulate this concept of creeping around a haunted house, going up and down floors, looking for these things in the dark. But yeah, Haunted House was pretty successful. It's well regarded, and a lot of people consider it to be one of the earliest examples of the survival horror video game genre. There have been a number of other versions and updates for Haunted House throughout the years. I recently got the Atari 50 for my Switch, which is a really impressive history lesson. It takes you right the way through from the beginning in like 1971 or whatever it was when Atari was formed, all the way up to more or less present day with video interviews with the people that were there at the time and playable games all the way through. Really cool little package, definitely recommend. But it also has a bunch of brand new games or updated games in it as well, some new versions of things. It's got a new shiny version of Yars' Revenge, which is my favourite Atari game, and it's really freaking good. And it has a version of Haunted House, which is made in like voxel 3D graphics, and I absolutely love it. It's got 3 haunted houses. Well, it's got 4. It's got a tutorial house and then 3 main houses, and it's all done in, as I say, full 3D, and it's very faithful to the original. It keeps very closely to that original aesthetic. You're literally playing a pair of eyeballs like you were in the original. Although the original implied that it was like a cartoon. You were actually playing a person in the dark, but in a cartoon way, all you could see were their blinking eyes in the dark. Whereas in this, you are literally a pair of eyes, which is, I mean, I don't really approve of that, but I get it. It does certainly make it feel like you are playing Haunted House. And yeah, the gameplay is pretty much straight up the same as the original. You just search the rooms for the pieces of the urn. The difference being this time you have 3 different playable characters, or eyeballs, that have different abilities. One of them can shoot ghosts dead, like it can destroy the ghosts. It's basically a Ghostbuster. That's the one you want, but that's the last one you'll unlock. And yeah, I find it incredibly fun. I really like it. I think it's a sort of interesting middle ground between the original Haunted House and the one that I've been talking about, released on Switch recently, which is kind of like a whole new game built from the ground up on the sort of foundations of the original. So that's all I'm going to say about the original Haunted House. I mean, there is a lot more to say. That was a very brief just sort of description of the game, but you get the gist of it. I mean, you can certainly, I just wanted you to see it. I wanted you to see this in contrast to what you've been seeing before. If you enjoyed this video and you feel like any of that was of interest or of any help to you whatsoever, let me know in the comments, smack a like on the video, all that good stuff. You know how YouTube works. Thank you so much for watching this video, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.